What's up, everybody? How we doing? Matt Modi here with OddsJam. In this video, here to do a deep dive on the MVP Super Bowl winner for obviously this year, Super Bowl 57. So odds are continuing to get posted. So by the time right now, when I'm recording this, we have two websites up on the site with Super Bowl odds. Definitely recommend to check as the week goes on, as more and more books get added. But two books right now, we can line shop between the two of them, Caesars and DraftKings, and find the best value for a Super Bowl pick. The first things first, right off the bat, the Eagles are still slight favorites here. The spread kind of opened up and then has moved a little bit. For about a week now, it has settled currently where it stands at the Eagles at about minus 121, minus 125, depending on where you're looking. So the Eagles are favored to win, which comes as no surprise. Jalen Hurts is the favorite to win the Super Bowl MVP. Obviously, if the Eagles win, the quarterback is most likely to win the MVP. So that makes a ton of sense. Jalen Hurts and Mahomes obviously being the heavy favorites at the top. If the Chiefs win, it'll probably be Mahomes. If the Eagles win, it'll probably be Hurts. So if you do want to just go chalk and bet on the quarterback of the team that is favored to win, go ahead and take Jalen Hurts. Take him at plus 125 odds at Caesars as opposed to plus 120 odds at DraftKings. And then if you think the Chiefs are going to win despite being the underdog, obviously they're not heavy underdogs and upsets happen all the time, then take Mahomes. Again, make sure to get him at Caesars at plus 130 odds. Don't really need to do a ton of analysis on the two quarterbacks because everybody knows the most likely position to win MVP is the quarterback. So more often than not, if you choose one of the quarterbacks, you will be correct, assuming you predict who's going to win. What's more interesting is trying to find the Cooper Kupps from last year, trying to find the Von Millers, the Malcolm Smiths, the Julian Edelmans, the players that win MVP that aren't quarterbacks. It's happened 4 times in the past 11 years. It did happen last year with Cooper Kupp. As I mentioned, he won the MVP for the Rams. He was at plus 600 odds, best offered leading up to the Super Bowl. And then prior to him, the last defensive player to win MVP was Von Miller in the Super Bowl with the Broncos against the Panthers. So looking at the odds here right off the bat, I mean, I could see the value for Travis Kelce. Admittedly, I find it hard to believe that the Chiefs could win. Kelce could have a good enough game to win MVP, but it won't be Mahomes. Now, that did happen last year with Matthew Stafford. He threw 2 interceptions, and Cooper Kupp had two touchdowns and basically broke the game or won the game for them at the very end. When the Rams were down, Stafford went to Cooper Kupp a ton in the last drive, and then also the game-winning touchdown to take the lead. So that one made sense. Now, there's obviously a path for it. If Mahomes' ankle, he re-aggravates it at the beginning of the game, and he's not able to scramble a ton, he's not able to do a ton, but he's able to check down to Kelce a lot, I could see that one making a lot of sense. So if you wanted to go against the grain a little bit, obviously Kelce, he has the third best odds to win. So it's not an outlandish statement for me to say I think he has the best non-quarterback chance of winning the MVP. I mean, against the Jaguars, he had like 16 receptions. Against the Bengals the week after, despite being questionable with a back injury, he had 7 receptions for 78 yards. He's only going to be healthier. Mahomes is only going to be healthier. And Kelce is, without a doubt, by far the biggest receiving threat for the Chiefs, without a doubt. Now, Mahomes obviously spreads the ball around a ton, but Kelce's always going to get his. So in terms of an offensive option for the Eagles, it's kind of split between A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, and Devontae Smith. To be honest with you, I don't really like any Eagles offensive option that's not Jalen Hurts. The path for that is something similar happens in the this game that happened in the previous 2 games for the Eagles, in which Jalen Hurts didn't really need to do a lot. The Eagles won pretty handily. Now, I don't really foresee a scenario in which the Eagles win comfortably. Maybe, now I'm not predicting this, if they do win by double digits, maybe it's a 3-point game in the 4th quarter, and then they score a touchdown to go up by 10, something like that. I don't really see a scenario in which the Eagles win And Jalen Hurts doesn't need to do a lot on offense, right? He runs for a ton, he passes for a ton, and he also does a pretty good job spreading the ball around between their three main targets. So if we take out Sanders, between Brown, Smith, and Dallas Goedert, those three get a ton of options, and I find it unlikely that one of them blows up enough to get MVP over Hurts, because it's not like the Chiefs situation where Travis Kelce is by far clear and above the number one target. Hurts can spread it out between Smith, Brown, and Goddard. And then he can also hand the ball off for Sanders, and he can also run himself. So there's less of a path, to me personally, to hone in on an Eagles offensive player that's not Hurts. Now, I will say, to go back to Kelce for a second, I did forget to mention this. A tight end has never won an MVP award before. Now, obviously, there hasn't really been a tight end like Kelce aside from Gronk, and he always got Brady'd in the Super Bowl, or the one year when Edelman, he won MVP despite even not scoring a touchdown at all because he had a ton of receptions for a ton of yards. So I don't really think there's anything to scare me away from Kelce just because a tight end has never won it before, because Kelce's basically a starting receiver for the Chiefs. What I do find interesting is the two defensive players that have the best odds, the Eagles, is Hassan Reddick at plus 3,500. Now, they don't do this, but if there is an award for the championship game, like they do, I think they do this in college basketball. I'm not sure they do it in other sports. They give an award for the championship game or everything leading up to the actual final game. Hassan Reddick absolutely would have been MVP for the Eagles. He dominated the right tackle in both of the Giants and 49ers game. He sacked Daniel Jones twice on the very first drive for the Giants in their first game against the Giants. And then against the 49ers, he strip sacked Purdy, which ended up injuring Purdy, but he strip sacked him on the literal first drive of the game. And the Chiefs' offensive line is really good. Their weakest spot is their right tackle at Andrew Wiley. So if it's not going to be Hurts, I could see a scenario in which Hassan Reddick just absolutely wrecks the game for the Eagles. I saw a stat that he's got like 10 sacks in his last 7 games, something like that. He has just been absolutely on fire. And maybe it's one of those games similar to the Tampa Bay Bucks Super Bowl when they beat the Chiefs, where Mahomes is constantly running for his life, which normally Mahomes out of the pocket is a scary thing for defenses. But maybe if Mahomes is a little banged up with his ankle, he's not able to escape as easily as possible. So Hassan Reddick, if you think the Eagles are going to win and you don't want to go chalk with Hurts, Hassan Reddick would actually be my favorite bet over any of the offensive players for the Eagles. On the Chiefs side, Chris Jones, he honestly, if it were up to me, he would win defensive player. If I had a vote, he would be my vote. Absolute game wrecker. He destroyed the game against the Bengals, pretty much won the game for them, aside from that penalty at the very end when he sacked Burrow. Absolute game wrecker, good in the pass rush. They also move him out to the end position to go up against the tackles. Now, the risk with Jones is that the Eagles' offensive line is the best in the NFL, and they haven't let a player wreck a game yet. They played a really, really good defensive tackle in Dexter Lawrence against the Giants, completely neutralized him, didn't let him do anything. They played a really good defensive line in the 49ers in Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, didn't let them do anything. So I find it hard to believe that Chris Jones is going to wreck the game the same way he did against the Bengals, just because the Eagles are more apt to handle it. But if Hurts' shoulder's banged up and he doesn't run a ton, he is a little bit scary, is a little bit scared, still in the pocket. Maybe I could see a scenario in which Chris Jones, but I would probably avoid it. And I would take, if you don't want to take Mahomes, I would take Kelce. And then for the Eagles, if you don't want to take Hurts, I would take Hassan Reddick, actually. He would be my favorite MVP outside of Jalen Hurts for the Eagles. And if you want like some kind of a little bit more of a dark horse, someone like a Malcolm Smith who really wasn't on anybody's radar to win the MVP, I would say it would be, if you wanted to throw like $1, $5 on CJ Gardner-Johnson to win MVP, he's probably going to get the matchup against Kelce. And again, I'm not predicting this. I'm not saying this is likely, but if you want a ridiculous dart throw, CJ Gardner-Johnson is probably going to be matched up the most against Kelce. If there's a scenario in which Kelce gets shut down, he has 5 reception for 25 yards and no touchdowns. I would imagine Chauncey Gardner-Johnson would be the most likely culprit of doing that to Kelce. He also led the league. It was tied for the lead in interceptions despite missing 5 games. So maybe he does that and he gets 2 interceptions, or he recovers a fumble for a touchdown, something like that. I think he's the most likely ridiculous dart throw to win MVP. So again, if you wanted to throw $5 on it, I could see a bigger case for him over really any of these other players down here. So he is my like absolute shot in the dark dart throw. But in terms of the favorites, I kind of already touched on it. The 2 quarterbacks, Kelce or Reddick, would be my votes. So if you're locking in any of these, if you found any of this analysis helpful, please let me know. But that's all I got. So appreciate everybody watching and have a good one.